Neighbors say it started with confusion, seeing this large crime scene at a couple's home down the street.
Once I saw the caution tape, I didn't see any ambulance or whatnot. I was like, maybe, somebody's hurt pretty bad.
It quickly became clear this was far worse. According to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, around 5:30 a.m., a man called 911 saying his parents had been shot and were beyond help.
Christopher and Trinette Lopez, both 52 years old, were living a good life in a nice two-story home on the 3700 block of Bent Springs Lane in Katy, Texas. The couple had been together for over 30 plus years and moved into their forever home in the year 2000. From the outside looking in, they had what most people would call an ideal life. They raised 3 children who are now grown and a 7-year-old adopted daughter who was also a blood relative to Trinette. Their home is located in a quiet neighborhood where most people know each other's names, and since they had been living there for 25 plus years, the Lopezes were beloved in their community. When the family decided to adopt a cousin's child some years back, they never thought that providing a now 7-year-old Normani with stability and love would turn into a fatal nightmare. But here's the thing about adoption. Sometimes things can go smoothly, and sometimes the biological parent may fight against it if the state takes the child away. Normani's biological father, a now 42-year-old Norman Lee Johnson Jr., never let go of the ideal that his daughter should be with him full time. However, the Lopez family had custody. Despite that, Norman wanted his daughter, and according to everyone who knew the situation, he made that very clear, like constantly clear for years, and was said to be fighting to get his daughter in his care full time. Those close to the situation told investigators that he had been protesting the adoption, challenging it, and making his anger well known. As things escalated over time, he would even make harmful remarks telling the Lopez parents that he would take their lives if he could not have Normani. Now, some may be wondering what happened to Normani's mother and is she still alive? She is, and according to her, she has some visitation rights and sometimes was able to get her daughter on the weekends. However, some loved ones dispute what visitation she really had, if any at all. But Normani is not her only child, and it appears she has a younger daughter, and there's pictures of the girls spending time together on her social media. As far as the biological mother and Norman, the pair are no longer together, and according to Norman's social media, he appears to be married to a different woman. See, way before January 12, 2026, when a terrible crime took place, Norman was clearly showing the Lopez family what he was capable of doing. On October 20th, 2024, Norman allegedly gets into it with Christopher Lopez, allegedly over visitation issues, over when he could see his daughter, how often, and under what conditions. The kind of argument that can happen in custody disputes, but generally never reaches a fatal level. Court records will reveal that Norman told Christopher and another relative, "I will unalive you if I don't get my child back." It was a remark that was made clear enough, on top of his other actions, that landed him with a harassment charge. Unfortunately, even with someone being charged with something, if they're that determined to ruin you, they could care less about a court order or a piece of paper. It is the sad truth, and for some unhinged people, it makes them more unpredictable in their actions. All the Lopez family was doing were trying to give Normani the best life possible, something that her biological parents were allegedly not equipped to do for her. Even with the judge ruling, Norman became more angry, still fighting for access to his daughter. The Lopez family knew this, and they told authorities that Norman had a harmful criminal history and that it wasn't his first time making someone feel unsafe. On January 12, 2026, early in the morning before the sun came up, investigators believe Norman entered the Lopez family home on Bent Spring Lane. How he got in, we don't know. The sources don't say if a door was unlocked, if he had a key back when he had access for visitations, or if he forced his way inside. What we do know is Norman allegedly made his way inside of the home, and that is where he shot Christopher in the face and shot Trinette 2 times in the head. The part that's even more heartbreaking is that Trinette had a gunshot wound through one of her hands, which appeared to show that she knew what was happening and tried to block the shot. It is believed that Christopher was probably shot first, and it's just even more tragic to think about the terror she went through in those moments before losing her life. While all of this was taking place downstairs, upstairs in the home, 2 of their adult children were sleeping, plus little Normani. But according to her biological mother, her daughter saw everything allegedly, and this is what she had to say. "I'm the mom of the 7-year-old. I went to the scene soon as I got the call around 6:30 a.m. Something definitely ain't right. I can't sleep, and they won't let me have my child back. I need to know more of what is going on, and I keep hearing different stories, but my baby's seen what happened. She told me. They have yet to question my baby about what she saw. Now, there's been no official word if this is true, and I hope and pray that that little girl did not see what took place. It is already disturbing that a father who claimed to love her so much would take the life of two people who took care of her since a little baby. Did he not think how that would affect her? And strangely enough, after the crime took place, he did not try to take her from the home and allegedly fled the scene before authorities could get there. Once authorities did arrive, they walked into a gruesome scene. And even though the general public at the time was unaware of who could do such a crime, some family members said they had a person in mind.
Now, this is video of Harris County Sheriff deputies responding to this double shooting earlier this morning. It was around 5:20 a.m. when they got the call from the couple's adult children that they heard gunfire and found their parents dead. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez says the husband was found near the living room and the mom sadly was found by the kitchen. There apparently weren't any signs of forced entry. However, authorities have yet to recover a gun. We spoke to some neighbors here on the block, and one said the 7-year-old foster daughter of the couple ran to a neighbor's house to rush to safety.
First, we saw the crime scene tape, so we were just like, what's going on? But just shocked because this is a quiet neighborhood. Anytime someone, passes is sad, but to know that it's right up the street.
At this point, I've heard obviously they're pretty stunned and shocked about what happened early this morning to be awakened by that.
After the news reported the story, it was widely believed that one of the adult children took their parents' lives, as people found it hard to believe that adult kids were in the home, unharmed, and knew nothing. But it was more going on behind the scene, so the case would not be jeopardized. Law officials stayed tight-lipped about what they knew until an arrest was made. However, the sheriff did make it clear from the beginning that it was a targeted attack involving someone close to the situation. The investigation will end up coming together pretty quickly, as law officials were trying to piece together who would have a reason to want the Lopez family murdered and who had a motive. The first person that came to mind for everyone was Norman, because as I stated before, his words were already documented with law officials about wanting to take their lives if he didn't get his daughter. Also, to no surprise, the most damning evidence was him allegedly being caught on camera at some point in or around the community. During the early stages of the investigation, it was also said on the news that the person who did the crime was an ex-lover, but that turned out to be misinformation. Also, in one of the interviews with the news, one of the adult children would correct more misinformation that their 7-year-old cousin was adopted and not a foster child. Even the biological mom said, "My daughter Normani meant more to Chris and Tree than just a foster daughter." Since the crime took place so early in the morning and the parents' bedroom was downstairs, only one person said they heard any shots, and that was one of the adult daughters. 3 days after the crime took place, and before becoming an official suspect in the murder, Norman happened to be arrested on an outstanding warrant. For whatever legal reasons, they were not able to hold him, and he was released the next day. Even if the police thought he might have been the person who committed this crime against the Lopez family, which they most likely did, they apparently didn't have enough at the time to hold him. But I find it so strange, knowing what he already put the family through over the years, that they would let him back out on the streets. But the law was the law. His freedom was only short-lived, though, and he was eventually arrested in Round Rock, a large suburb of Austin, some 175 miles northwest of Houston. The U.S. Marshals Lone Star Task Force booked him into the Williamson County Jail on 2 counts of capital murder.
Norman Lee Johnson behind bars tonight in Round Rock, Texas. The 42-year-old facing a capital murder charge, accused of shooting Trinette and Christopher Lopez in the early morning hours on January 12th. Gunshots woke up the rest of the house and the suspect fled. Today, the sheriff's office announced the arrest. According to the couple's daughter, Johnson is a cousin. The Lopezes, described as selfless, legally adopted his daughter years ago to give her a stable home. According to court records, he threatened to kill Christopher Lopez over the same child custody issue. More recently, family says he demanded the couple give the little girl back.
Tragically, Norman's words were not just anger talking. It was a thought-out plan that he eventually decided to go through with. His desires to have his daughter back grew into an unhealthy fixation on taking the very people who provided all of her care, the two that she saw as her parents, away forever. Not thinking about how the outcome would hurt Normani, but his own selfish desires. Christopher and Trinette had built such a strong family unit, The two had been together over 30 plus years, got married, raised 3 children, and lived in the same home for over 25 years. They provided so much love, nurturing, and stability to that young girl, and now that was all stolen from her by the very person she is named after. Now, the court system does not always have it right, and sometimes children end up where they shouldn't be, but it appears that Normani was in the right place. Because if her dad can do this to 2 people that are his relatives who took in his child as their own, there's no telling what he could have done or been capable of doing down the line. My thoughts and prayers go out to all of their children, including little Normani, and I pray that justice be served. However, the hardest part is knowing that even though he is behind bars and may get life in jail or even the death penalty, they will never get their parents back, and that should not be the case. Let me know your thoughts. Also, please don't forget to comment your prayers for this family as well, and hit that like button and share to make your people aware. And as always, remember to stay woke. Things change quickly.